Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Welcome back to episode 45 of the Breaking Point podcast. We are back again. Austin isn't here today due to some personal stuff. Hopefully he'll be back in business next week, but we've got plenty to discuss today because so much has happened the last couple of weeks on the Call of Duty side. We had the special episode last week with Jake Rowell. That was really fun. If you guys haven't checked that out yet, link in the description maybe, or just find it on the YouTube. But Lion's here today. He's moved. He's in a new place. You guys might well have noticed. We'll get the lowdown on that one, and then we'll discuss all the, frankly, a very dramatic couple of weeks of Call of Duty. There has been some spice on the timeline. It's been an exciting time, gearing ourselves up nicely for whenever the new season is going to start. And that's another big question, right, as to if the CDL's actually ever going to say anything about if the CDL's actually restarting again, because that might be quite nice. But yes, welcome to the show. For those of you watching on Twitch, that's greatly appreciated. After the fact on YouTube, the audio platforms as well, we really appreciate it. Dropping a like, leaving us a rating really helps everything out. We actually saw Spotify Wrapped came out today, and loads of people mentioning that like we were their number one podcast on the Spotify Wrapped. So yeah, DMs coming through. So that's really cool. So appreciate all of you guys, or anyone who even if we made the top 5, that's awesome. And I've rambled for a while. Lion, how's it going? You've moved. It's sunny outside. You know, we've got the sun coming in, the vitamin D. It's just great vibes.
Yeah, it's a beautiful day, no work. Talk about some COD and how things are going in the scene, because they're definitely going. And we'll break that down in just a few minutes. And yeah, it's been good. Not been up to much. How have you been?
I've been good. Been started a Valorant channel. Valorant channel's absolutely, it's on fire. I want it to overtake my main channel. It'll take a while to overtake in terms of subs, but I think we'll get there. I think we will get there. It's got monetized a couple of days ago. Every week it's just massively multiplying, and the Valorant champions are starting at the moment, the World Championship. So that's pretty cool. I mean, the game is what it is, but there's a lot of excitement around it, and it's just fun to like follow another esport in the same way. Just because COD is dead for like 6 months, or at least there's no matches. So different games have different life cycles. So like when their championships are, and when their roster cycles are, and stuff like this. So it's pretty cool
I
to follow some
just
stuff.
saw your channel. It's now making like, I remember when it had like 5 to 20 views, like, and now it's like 10K.
Yeah, the first videos
boy.
I made like 2 months ago got maybe like 10
It's
views
like
or
100,
something. But
Yeah.
yeah, so now they're getting about like 5-6K a pop, which is actually very similar to what I got in the COD when I started the COD stuff. It's actually
Yeah.
better than when I started the COD stuff. So I just think the potential. I mean, the first match today in Valorant had like 680,000 views peak total between all the co-streams, which like why are we not doing co-streams? But so I think it's going to be pretty big when it comes down to to the finals and everything. So lots of potential in that game. I love Call of Duty though. We're not going anywhere from that. But
Yeah.
it's cool to expand horizons a little bit. And I think you
Yeah,
said
but
like LionMan cards, they might be coming to Val as well.
they are for sure. And I wouldn't be surprised if Breaking Point becomes a Valorant channel as well in the near future. If we see, I think me and you are the first ones within Breaking Point to kind of like venture into it. And then when things go well, maybe we'll convince the others to come join. Maybe we'll get a EasyMac.
I mean, Austin's also like he's also interested in Valorant as well. Like, so
Yeah.
all of us three, we could do some multiple podcasts going on because there's room in the space. The game came out like last year. It's kind of insane how new it all is, but there we go. Nice little update for the boys to get us cracking. So, I mean, there's a load to dive into today. First thing, we wanted to catch up on kind of the previous week that we kind of missed or what we were discussing about. Did you see Scump? He won that $100,000 Warzone tourney, like the 1v1 for all the bread. It was like this solo Warzone tourney. He made this honestly insane play. He was fully in the zone and like beat a 1v1 against Aiden to win like the 100K, which is just insane, really, to think about how that went down. It's kind of funny. I saw today he was nominated for like the Forbes. Well, not nominated, but he was inducted into kind of the Forbes 30 under 30 or whatever it's called in the gaming sector for the year, and it mentioned in there like, oh yeah, he's a 2 times X Games gold medalist. He's won $900,000 in prize earnings, including $100,000 from the World Series of Warzone 1v1. And they didn't mention his World Championship. Didn't mention the World Championship. The fact that he won that is more important than he won this, this Warzone tourney. But
Yeah.
regardless, that's pretty. To me, that's like legendary status because that's so much cash. Like all the other guys, like obviously they grind it every day. He was just coming in there super fresh. There was some sort of riot shield meta going on that they were all like had the shield on the back. Scump wasn't bothering with that. He was just gunning people straight up.
Yeah.
I mean, just goes to show, right? Like not only are the COD pros a different caliber to some of those players, but also like just Scump in general is just a unit all across the park. I can't believe he pulls this stuff off all the time.
Yeah, and Karma came top 5 as well, which is crazy. So like out of the top 5, 2 were Optic Dynasty, which is pretty hilarious. But Scump also went off with the pistol. Like he didn't have a riot shield. He was just running around with stuns and a pistol and like dominated. 11 kills. Wasn't
Exactly.
even close.
The pistol strat as well. He was just gunning people with a pistol. It's like that.
Yeah. The fact
Doesn't
that Aiden though almost killed him while stunned was mad. Like he was fully stunned and he got him one shot, which
Yeah,
doesn't make sense.
that's the game. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
Not
I'm
the
not
biggest
like the
Warzone fan, but
biggest. I was literally about to say that. Yeah.
yeah, as soon as you started to say what you were going to say, I was like, I've preempted him.
Uh, yeah.
But
But it was fun to watch. And I like watching it when they're like players I know of who are playing. When it's just Warzone pros, I don't really take 100% serious. Like you'll
yeah,
watch, like you'll see Warzone pros earning like 500K in like a month, and it's against other Warzone pros, and I feel like that isn't quite as justified as when it's like every single player playing, like pros and Warzone pros. But it is what it is. Still entertaining.
yeah, I think so. I mean, it's one of those strange ones where I don't really think it's good to watch at all. I used to watch a lot of the Fortnite tourneys with like Nick Merckx and that when it was the kill races, but I just don't think
Yeah.
kill races are particularly interesting. But when it's like everyone's in the same custom lobby and all this stuff, then it can be interesting. And I kind of had this realization this week when people were talking about, okay, Halo's killing it, like Call of Duty's not in a good spot. Like, what if the CDL says, okay, we're just going to become a Warzone league or whatever? I was like, what does that mean for the channel? Like these type of questions. And I kind of realized, like, at the end of the day, people watch my channel and I follow Call of Duty mainly just for the personality. So if the personalities go and start playing Warzone, then I'm sure a vast majority of the competitive Call of Duty community will still follow those personalities in their other endeavors. But hopefully that's something we don't have to worry about.
Yeah, that's the problem with Comp CoD is that there's so much potential. Like you see, I always bring this
We'll
one
just
up, but
talk about
Zoomer,
it.
yeah, Zoomer, the
Yeah,
fact that he just started a podcast that is like huge now, and he has
I
like
know it's
20,000
insane,
subs,
right?
just covering CoD. Like there's so much potential there, and the viewership is there. It's just like the backing isn't there from the developers to even capitalize on that already like forward momentum.
Yeah,
But yeah, it seems to be a weekly topic that we bring up, but
it
that's
does, right?
that's the state of it right now.
Yeah,
Oh,
agreed. Just given we were talking about Scump, I thought I'd mention this real quick because there was some talk from Krim a week on a bit ago when he was making his like top ranking his top players to determine who'd be captains in these tournaments, and he put Dashi at like the like top. I think he put him top 24, top 25 or something at that ballpark. And it definitely had a few words to say on the fact that Dashi's like losing them more games they're winning them. And then he basically said like he thinks Scump was the best player on the Optic Chicago team last year, which thinking back at the year actually makes a lot of sense that Scump was the best player on that team. And I think it was also true in terms of our rankings we did, even though maybe Dashi just about put
yeah.
Scump.
Nah,
No, I don't
Scump
think
was
he
the
did.
higher.
Scump was like 11th, wasn't he? And then Dashi was like
Yeah,
13th, Envoy was like 14th or something.
I'm pretty sure it
15th,
was
16th.
13, 12, 11, and then it was
Yeah, it might have been
Envoy
something like
13,
that.
Cashy 12, Scump 11. And I think that's fair because over the whole year he was the most consistent across all game modes, and especially SND, he was insane. Whereas the others kind of just had weird peaks and valleys like throughout the year, especially Envoy. He was probably the
Yeah,
most inconsistent, but had the highest peak. So it was a pretty strange year for Optic, but
it
um,
was.
yeah, Scump for sure was definitely the most consistent.
Yeah, I agree. Because during the season, it was kind of it went back and forth. Like Formal was never really in that discussion for whatever reason, and then it was like, okay, Envoy was maybe not the flashiest player, but he was the player with maybe the most memorable moments. It almost feels like he had a lot of situations where he would just I mean, when the flanks work right, they work really effectively. And Search and Destroy, there were some good moments as well. Dashi had some highlight plays, especially his raid control was disgusting. But a lot of the time, Dashi would just put up a pretty silent, like 1.2 KD, and he would just be sitting at a nice on the scoreboard. You wouldn't really see too much out of him. But then Scum obviously was a
Yeah.
Search and Destroy wizard this year as well. So it's really exciting in a way. Just looking forward as well to this upcoming season with where Scump is, because of course, like he's 26 or whatever, which actually compared to some of the other players still competing seems kind of young. And I think he's still got probably a fair few years left. And Doug was saying that he reckons that Scump like this might be his best COD since like Modern Warfare 3, at least based on what Center's been watching early on. And when I've watched Scump stream, he's pretty nasty. I mean, look, obviously it's early days, but if this
Yeah,
Opti
but
team is good, then
how could you possibly say it's his best game since Modern Warfare 3 when he was the best player in the world from an AW to IW?
I
Like
did think that was quite a
MW3
take
was
really from Doug. Yeah.
just a demigod. MW3, like that's just a shit take. I'm sorry, Doug. I love you, but my goodness. Moving
Yeah, I
on.
was thinking like it's pretty. I thought it was pretty well renowned that like he was the best player in the game, undisputedly, obviously in Advanced Warfare, but also that was probably the best version of him individually. Like
Yeah,
people say,
like
Advanced Warfare
how could you
Scum was like the
say?
final boss.
How could you say he's better than that? It's pretty much what he's saying. He's better than the best player ever in COD history right now.
And Scum was in like 16 in Modern Warfare 3, probably. Yeah, only
Yeah,
16 because it was 10
yeah.
years ago. We did the 10-year anniversary thing with Jake Brown last week.
Mhm.
Madness. Let's talk about state of the game a little bit. As to be honest, you guys see Censor in the CDL. We will come on to discuss Doug Censor Martin here on the podcast because there's a lot to talk about with Censor. Whether he gets back in the league, that's another question. Even though, in fairness, it wasn't close to happening last year, but we did talk about it, right? Because Seattle needed a player, and Doug was like, "I'm your guy," and maybe he was talked to, wasn't picked to the end, but so okay. We didn't talk about this before. The bomb glitch is finally fixed, Lion. So that's dealt with, and the
Good.
bloom also got slightly reduced. Okay, so well done, Sledgehammer. Like, yeah, pat on the back. You fixed a glitch, which I have no idea how it even passed. How did that even pass go in the first place to get into the game? Like, if anyone spawned into a search and destroy, they would have noticed the glitch. But it's okay. It eventually got fixed. So then you've got to think the problem is in a way that now that's been fixed. It's not a problem. It's a good thing, really, but it's just inevitable that the pros are no longer complaining about the bomb glitch, but they're now going to complain about the other things wrong with search and destroy. So the silent plant and diffuse is a big one that's been talked about right now. That you can't silent plant or diffuse if you pick it up, like you crank the lever, that makes noise. You can be sound horde, which is not ideal. And then the other part of it is, I think the announcer guy, when the bomb is dropped and the guy picks it up, it tells you that he's got the bomb, whatever. So stuff like that in Search and Destroy just doesn't make it as good as it could be. There's also so many other things that you could just wallbang the entire map on, like bow cage and stuff like this. So yeah, I don't know what you think about that line. Like, there's just so many things wrong with the game, and then when one gets fixed, more and more get brought up, and it's like you're never going to get to the bottom of it. Probably, like there's always going to be more things people
Yeah,
discover, but some of them
the
need to be
good thing
fixed.
about these, the good thing about these issues is that they're not like the issues from Modern Warfare with Search and Destroy, where it was no dead silence, which was such a big problem.
Mm.
This year, that's not the case. It's kind of glitches that are not meant to be in the game that will be fixed. So I don't really mind it that much. It's just kind of buggy things that the community's trying to like get vocal around to get fixed, but it's not these game breaking issues that are going to be in the game the whole year. So it's not the biggest deal. It's just kind of sloppy. And in the short term, it makes the game look bad, but it's fine. I don't really mind it.
Yeah, I mean, like for watching the game, I don't really mind so much, but I do feel for the players a little bit with what they're having to deal with right now, and the frustrations are certainly making themselves known. And one of the consequences of this, honestly, is the CDL came out with a rule set for what was going to be the Challengers Cup, which I think was meant to be happening in this coming weekend, I think. Um, and they had to delay it because, firstly, the rule set was completely wrong. So they released a rule set on the official site, and they're like, okay, this is the rules. This is what the cup is going to be based on. And the players look at it and say, hang on a second, like, why is there's a few rules that people are like, that's just straight up wrong. For example, in terms of weaponry being banned, all the pistols were banned in the rule set. So it's like, okay, well, I don't think you can actually select anything else but a pistol on the rule set because maybe the launchers are banned in the official CDL settings already. So you literally can't even use any class if the pistols are banned. Obviously, they're not going to be banned anywhere. Like they're in the game. They're not too OP compared to previous games. The rat is pretty good, and some other ones are pretty good as well. But still, so the players were like, "What is this? The rule set's wrong." And then the CDO guys kind of came out and said, "Yeah, it's a mistake. Our bad. We'll fix it." And they did fix it, but it's like, again, how does that get through the cracks? And then some of the European amateurs, the likes of Sport, Josh, Dave, some of the other guys who have been there or thereabouts for the last several years, had great success as well in the past in Call of Duty. Were like, look, I'm not really enjoying Vanguard. It's not particularly well supported. Halo Infinite's just come out. Going to give that a go on a competitive level. And Josh has been saying that since he's moved over there, he's had better offers, like more and better offers, more money from Halo orgs than he has in the last 3 years, trying to be a amateur in the Call of Duty side. And even Morks did this. I don't know if you saw Morks, but he's decided to quit challenges and go and move to Halo. So it's a pretty common thing. I don't know how long it'll last. We saw Arcity saying that like these people trying to move over, like their teamwork wasn't good in Call of Duty. They think it's going to be good in Halo. Like they're going to have a rude awakening. Wonder how many of them will actually make it on that level. But still, it's exciting to see how it goes, I think, and to see how it turns out. It's just good to see the competition, really. I want to see these guys actually have a good time competing on a game because I don't envy them grinding Vanguard every day.
Yeah, I think the biggest reason why they would have made that move is because the opportunity to get from an amateur to like a pro team is so much higher because of the lack of franchise within Halo. Like you can just be an open team and make it to play the top players and then become like in that top upper echelon, you know? So it just takes like one good tournament to be considered among those players. And I guess it makes that the salaries are higher because they can reach that level and there isn't like within challenges there's not much to play for really right now, and I
That's the
assume
thing.
like the image, yeah, the hype around Halo and like the fact that it's brand new and that it's optimized quite well is like very appealing for these players within challenges that don't have much to play for.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, just the game is actually enjoyable and designed for competitive, so that's always going to be a benefit if you're trying to make it happen. Having said that, of course, there's a lot of people who think the same. There's a lot of competition in Halo. Like, it's not just. It was kind of interesting watching them play. Actually, it seemed like Josh and Co could basically just run through that kind of qualifier, no issues at all, by just Nolson and the guys just could gun their way to like top six or whatever. But like they could just win all the gunfights and that would be good enough to get to top six. But then once they actually played up against like a pro caliber team, like they just got completely outplayed. I'm not LionMan anymore, but it's all good. I'm back in business. So yeah, so that's pretty interesting. Of course, the other side of it is the fact that we'll talk about the third game mode and the possibilities there in towards the end, but because the third game mode isn't even here yet, we don't know what it's going to be. And I think because of all the stuff going on with Activision Blizzard and like the lawsuit and the chaos at the top there, like they gave like their staff like 10 days off work or something. So a lot of the stuff that was meant to be dealt with has been delayed, and therefore like things have been delayed on the CDL and the Challengers front. So the new first Challengers Cup Open thing is going to be on December 11th through to the 12th now, where I guess they're thinking that the third game mode will come out with season one, which I think drops on December the 8th. So I think that's what they're expecting. And I mean, maybe they know, you'd think that they would know, wouldn't you? But I don't have faith that there's actually any communication going on there, that they do know 100% what is coming at that time. But I guess we'll see on that front. I don't know what you think about that line. We'll just talk about the third game mode now, given we're here. Like, because I kind of threw out some options. We did talk about it before, like, control, CTF, what else are we playing? Um, isn't actually going to turn up, like, because uh, have we ever had this before? We don't have another third gamer to play. Is that a thing?
No, it's
I feel
never
like we've
happened
always had
before.
someone to
Like,
play.
yeah, even like years gone past when it was Ghosts and they chose just what was it, Blitz? It's just
Mm.
like there was always something ready and they just ran with it. Whereas this year it's like there's a lot of indecision to choose it as well as like implementing it in the game in the first place. I think Control last year was good. Dom the year before that was really bad, but they might look at viewership and think, or like player base within those game modes, because it's not 100% competitive focus, that domination might still be a good option. And I really hope that's not the case.
Mm.
But mm,
I do see exactly where you're coming from there. It's just kind of because the pros have decided in their own mind that it's not going to be Dom and it's not going to be anything that isn't like CTF or Control, basically, unless they come up with some other new game mode. Because I was kind of thinking, like Uplink, for example, they are like they're not going to bring that back here, I would imagine, but they did basically invent that sledgehammer back in Advanced Warfare. So it's like, they got something else up their sleeve, right? Because people were talking about like there's a game mode called Oddball in Halo where you just have to hold on to the ball and three of your guys can fight and you can't, but you can drop it and fight and then pick it up again or whatever. And you get 1 second, you get 1 point every second you hold the thing. Um, I don't know, maybe that could work in COD. It's probably a bit more boring than it would be like Uplink when you actually dunk the thing, but
oh, I actually think that would be a cool idea, like really cool.
I think it
Like
could work.
positioning around the map, team like trying to work together to hold it, and then having to like break that setup and grab the ball. Like I think that'd actually be cool,
One of
but
the
we'd have
cool
to see
things
it in
about
practice.
Oddball is like you can throw it out of the map, right, to reset it. Like as it
Yeah.
resets to spawn, just like with Uplink, where you'd hold the ball and then in order to stop the other team getting it, you'd throw it out, it'd reset, you have to play for the reset. Like all those kind of mini tactics within the game were pretty cool. So I just wonder if they've got something up their sleeve then rather than just come out with Control and CTF or just one of the two. But as long as we have something. But I kind of agree with Spectre in a way that like Uplink is just like a pack a punch version of Oddball. So, and I know maybe it won't work on boots on the ground, but if you're going to bring a game mode with a ball in, you might as well just make it Uplink, I would say, or Gridiron or whatever.
Mm, I feel like yeah, gridiron or like last year I made that design of the ball being above, like on top of a
Mm.
cone. Like the ball's up here and the cone's there, and
Yeah,
you could like run the
on
ramp
Miami, you made it, I
to the
think.
cone. Like yeah. And I feel like that would still be a cool option because it would make like getting ones, like throwing ones, still an option.
Yeah, it's still a possibility.
That was the best part. Playing like horse uplink, like chucking them over buildings and stuff. So fun.
Yeah. Man, those really were the good times. But yeah, we'll see. Like the pros are definitely getting impatient about this third game mode. Like Arstees was tweeting out like, it's not a joke anymore, lads. Like we are basically in December now. The game's been out a month and we have no idea on what's happening on that front. So I guess along those lines, thankfully, Call of Duty didn't win the Esports award for Esport Game of the Year, which would have been a bit of a shocker. But maybe they can
You didn't
finesse it in a
you,
future
you
year.
didn't did not have to say thankfully, bro. Shit.
Yeah, well, I mean,
That's our platform, man.
yeah, but it wouldn't be deserved. So I think, like games that pe people that deserve awards should win the awards. That's all. That's all I'll say. Um, the Spectre might be right actually about Patrol. Like they might have thought that Patrol was their kind of ace in the hole, up the sleeve type new game mode. But like, surely they would have realized that there's nowhere that's ever going to be a competitive mode because the spawns are going to be absolute chaos, and it's basically just hardpoint, but even like crazier really and less predictable. So yeah, I don't think Patrol was, at least for the pros, like it was in the beta. Some pros talked about it being like that's might be what they want us to play, but I don't really think that was gonna be happening.
No, that's just I mean, they probably assumed it would be fine, and then as soon as it was played, there was no chance. So I don't
Yeah,
know. I
it's kind
think
of an
if it
interesting
was
mode,
gonna
but
be anything, yeah, if it's gonna be anything, it should be CTF. Just because it's a very consistent game mode and it's quite hard to screw up unless the map's bad. Like if the maps are fine for CTF, which I haven't really given it a go, like looked into it that
I
much.
honestly think it could
But
work. the way the maps are laid out, I think it could work,
Yeah.
but the spawns would have to be good.
Yeah, that's the biggest issue is spawns and like making sure the back of the maps don't have heaps of empty space to be able to create like dumb stalemate situations.
Yeah.
So
The map needs to be wide enough as well at the back so that you can get it out and then have guys spawning on the flanks. I
mm,
think they can maybe make it work with a few of them. You only really need three. That's the positive bit. We'll see on that front. But Esports Awards, before I go off on the
yeah,
main stage again, we did get some winners as a Call of Duty kind of esports side. Pretty cool. Simp won the console player of the year. No real surprise there. I thought it's kind of like Call of Duty pros in general do pretty well in these awards, especially in the like controller. Did I say console? I should say controller or whatever. Doesn't really matter anymore because we're on PC
same
nowadays.
thing.
But yeah, exactly. It kind of sometimes I still feel console, but obviously it's controller, I guess technically.
Yeah,
So yeah, Simp won that. Not too much contest really. It was actually quite interesting. I thought the FaZe won Esports Team of the Year. There was a lot of contenders for that really. Obviously they were dominant within the CDL this year, but I thought like there was kind of it was kind of interesting they won that. I thought there were some other contenders like Navi. I think people were talking about like the Shanghai Dragons or whatever they're called in Overwatch that had a really dominant season as well. And but I mean, FaZe's season was pretty ridiculous. They won what 4 of the 6 events or whatever this year, which is and like their record was just absurd, especially on that level in Call of Duty. But that's the thing, we're always going to be biased, right? And
yeah,
Miles won play-by-play caster of the year. So happy for Miles, man. That's killer. So like awesome
yeah,
stuff. He's been around for a long time, hasn't got the recognition he deserves. I think he's always been overshadowed a bit by like Maven and Merc. But I think right now
yeah,
Miles and Chance. But in terms of play-by-play, Miles is best in the business in Call of Duty for sure. Um,
yeah.
and
By a
good to see him
mile.
get the recognition.
Yeah, like seeing him come up from doing the CWL casts in 2016 in ANZ, like he was an ANZ caster, like
Yeah,
casting to like 800 people, you know, from that to like the CWL in 2017, like doing the Global Pro League and then doing the like COD champs and then seeing him slowly become like a staple, like it's been awesome. And like getting to meet him as well and like having a few chats in LA, like yeah, he's a great guy, really like genuine in person as well. So
yeah,
as you could probably
exactly.
assume.
Yeah, he really can. You just know he's such a sound guy, like just the way he acts on and off camera. And I'd mentioned this in my video as well
Yeah.
when I talked about this, but if those listening haven't heard about it, like when I was at Anaheim in 2019, he was obviously casting there. And what really impressed me was not just his like I'm sure behind the scenes, he dedicates time to go through and okay, like some of the wordplay he brings up, some of it I'm sure is on the fly because he's really like his brain works like that. But some of it I'm sure is prepared in advance. Like he thinks about certain players, how he can like certain parts of the map. If a player gets a kill here, like what could I say that would make that like interesting or something. Like he does work away from just the casting itself, but he also does work behind the scenes before the cast was even beginning. I remember they were going to cast a Gen G match, like Miles and I guess it's probably Miles and Momo at the time, and he was talking to Joey Nubsy behind the stage when they were warming up for their game, and just kind of like wanted to get some insight from Nubsy on how their practice was going, like what they think about this opponent, these type of questions. So even like that tiny little bit of information maybe that he can bring up during the cast and just show that like just extra knowledge to the fan, which might seem like such a throwaway comment, but actually just adds more value. Um, and so I thought that was really cool. Hopefully, Chance gets his turn as well because I think that duo is just god tier. And as you were saying, like from a few years ago, casting in ANZ, like when you go back, sometimes I'll go back and like stumble across those old videos, and Miles is casting it right, and like the difference in like he's just improved so much in the last like 4 years. It's crazy. It's not exactly a surprise. Like
Yeah.
if people put work in, they improve.
Yeah,
He's
but he
got
was
to.
always like he was always that witty though, like his whole career. He
Yeah,
was that same exact caster. And so I feel like growth wise he has improved, but it's almost like he's been
yeah, I
that
agree.
way
He's
from the
like
start.
yeah, he's just like more confident in the way he says things and more like
Yeah, and now it's his full-time profession. He can probably like think about it when he's, not thinking about much. Like just probably
exactly
playing
yeah.
the game and then something will happen in the game, and he'll come up with new wordplay and hold on to it till he needs it.
Yeah. Get the notepad, write it down. Yeah. Just
Yeah.
great stuff. The other question was about like Insight, right? Because Insight didn't win Rookie of the Year. This guy called Monkey Moon or something won it from Rocket League. From what I heard about that, like this guy was like the monkey guy or whatever his name was, like Moon guy, was just out of control. Like this guy was just an insane rookie. Came in his first year, was like the best player in the game, winning all the events. So that was cool. I think Insight technically got like second or whatever. But the interesting question to me there was like, okay, well, as Chrome pointed out, this is pretty much the closest thing we had officially to an actual Rookie of the Year award because the CDL didn't really do one. So, like, Insight getting second place here was the closest thing we actually got to getting Insight as an official Rookie of the Year. So, I'm not really sure why they didn't do that, to be honest. Because most sports
Nah.
leagues do it.
Yeah, and it's been a thing every other year. Last year it was Shotzi. Year before it was Simp. Year before that, Kenny, even though he wasn't a rookie. It was 2017 Rookie of the Year.
What Infinite
So
Warfare?
Gun?
Yeah.
No, Gunless wasn't even. This wasn't
No,
the
it would
first
it would
year.
have had to have been Gunless. They for sure would have given it to him if they did an award officially.
Yeah,
Like Gunless definitely would have had it.
yeah,
That's a
yeah.
good
Because it
shout.
was his first year, like properly in the league.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he definitely counts as a rookie for that year. He came out of nowhere, really. Um,
2016. Who do you reckon? Black Ops 3.
Man,
This is
2016.
tough.
This is a tough one for
This is
sure. Like, who actually came on the scene and just dominated in that game? Well, I don't know about dominated. Probably no one came on the scene and dominated in that game.
probably,
Um,
in my opinion, probably Bance.
Oh. That's a really good call. That might have to
That
be the
was his
answer because
first year, right?
yeah, my first mind went to like a European player, but I wasn't sure who to say. Um, but Bance is probably a good
Yeah,
pick because they were pretty good that year, like even outside of just the champs performance, like they did pretty well before
yeah,
that. So and Bance was disgusting that year. So yeah, people always talk about it, right? Like Black Ops 3 Bance, like when he was performing well this year, like he was back to that kind of
yeah,
level. And yeah, I
yeah.
don't. It's a good point. There's a lot of players really that just that came on the scene that year, it seems. But most of the teams that dominated and won most of the events, basically Optic Dynasty, they weren't. Obviously, they were seen before. It's hydration
Yeah.
time. Um, so yeah, interesting stuff. I don't know. Maybe they'll do it official going forwards, but it just because people talk about it so much, right? Like who's the rookie, like predicting before the season begins who's going to be the rookie of the year, stuff like this, and then like you never
Yeah.
actually give it to anyone. Like maybe we could do better there.
Well, we'll do the awards next year. We were meant to do them
Exactly.
this year, and we didn't,
Oh
which
yeah,
is pretty
true. I feel like
stupid.
we were meant to do it. Yeah, forgot about that.
Yeah,
There was a couple that we
yeah. I think
didn't
we all.
do for some reason, and then the whole thing kind of fell through. But it's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the flank kind
We'll
of did
get
some
on.
awards, didn't they?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So that
It's
was
all
that was
good.
pretty cool. Okay, let's talk about this auto tactical sprint stuff because this has been the big drama of the last week. It's been very entertaining, and Doug Censor Martin's been going absolutely rogue, which is just fantastic stuff. So, it really started when Censor kind of like got exposed for using it. So auto tactical sprint is a setting you can turn on in the game. It means that when you move your left stick, you go sprinting in tactical sprint as opposed to just normal sprint or walking, rather than having to actually double press the left stick two times to get it working. So much discussion on what should be done about this, if anything. And Censor was exposed by people. Like people were basically saying, yeah, Doug's clearly using it. All the people in this tournament that aren't like competing at a pro level are using it because it helps you get better movement and stuff like this. But also there's other benefits as well in terms of like maintaining. Well, not getting arthritis in your hands is what some people would certainly say in the long term. So, Doug was going on a bit of a rant about like the impact that it would have on players' health if we don't allow it. Like he's trying to be in the best he's portraying himself as he's in the best interest of players in terms of maintaining their health, whereas other people like Doug or other people not like Doug, other people like Parasite would say like he's only doing it for his own best interests, right? Like his movement isn't the best, therefore like he wants to use auto attack sprint so he can get that advantage. If it was the other way around, maybe he wouldn't be so interested, right? So there's that whole side of things. like Clayster's coming out and saying he basically doesn't agree with Doug on this issue and saying that like he's tried to get through to them about this stuff before, but all they'll say is like skill gap and this type of stuff, and they'll just dismiss some of these concerns and complaints that some of these guys have. So there's that side of things, and then we've got Simp and the FaZe guys saying that like he's just doing it for so he can finesse for free, this type of stuff. Then we can bring this one up actually, Omar, if you want to, if you can, if it's ready to go on screen. This is a cracking tweet right here between Simp and Doug, where like Doug was basically kind of threw some daggers in a way. It was talking about how like Bance with their auto sprint like destroyed these guys at stage 2 finals, and then Doug goes like, for the number one team of the game, you guys are mad soft for this, which I thought was pretty funny. And then there was also this tweet thread where like these guys are talking to Censor, and they're basically saying like, there's a bit of a back and forth, and Parasite in the end goes, Doug's been doing anything to plead his case for something that's been gentleman's agreemented for 2 years because he prefers it. Guy is a brick brain, no point in arguing with him. So there was eventually Doug loses the war. He has to back down, and he has to say, okay, yes, I'll take it off, whatever, lads. Like I just stood my case, but no one wanted to listen, no one wanted to take it off, and therefore therefore it's GG, well played. So he takes it off, and he actually put a couple of clips of him with it off, actually looking better than he was with it on. But that's a topic that we can discuss, I guess. So there's so much to dive into here. Like, what's your thoughts on this line? Because some people say, look, it should be allowed. Some people say it should be banned because of skill gap. Some people say, why do we even have tactical sprint as an option? Because who actually uses tactical sprint for its intended purpose of being like a tactical option where you can sprint quicker, but with higher risk, I guess, rather than normal sprint? But it's like, if you're sprinting, you're tactical sprinting, you're not normal sprinting. Nobody does that. Like, nobody normal
Yeah.
sprints and tactical sprints. So it's like, is that the thing we get rid of? But then I would say I want the game that the pros play to be as similar as possible to the game that the normal players play. And if you're just going to disable tactical sprints, people will be confused. So I don't know. It's a tough call. I think Doug makes some fair points, though, to be honest.
I think it shouldn't even be in the game in general, like obviously. But if it was going to be in the game, I do understand both sides. Like Doug probably wants it for sure because one, skill gap wise, it minimizes the difference between certain players' movements.
Yeah,
But
I think
then
that's
the other
fair.
way around, it's like I understand why you'd want to try and avoid getting arthritis in your hand and breaking controllers. And so,
Yeah,
in
that's
my
another one.
opinion, the best option is just to completely remove it from the game. But that's not going to happen. So why not just make it legal? So it's in the game, so make it legal. GA is something less, like doesn't need to be out of the game unless there's like an obvious advantage for someone, but there isn't. So
Yeah, the other angle was like, well, if you're gonna not allow auto attack sprint, then why are people allowed to use scuff controllers, right? Because you could say it's the same thing,
Mhm.
right? A scuff controller or Battle or whatever, like other controller providers are available. You can basically do stuff for well easier than you would be able to do otherwise, right? If every player had to use a default controller, then that would surely increase the skill gap, right? In terms of what you can do, rather than just having a paddle on the back that allows you to do stuff for free. So that's also an angle. The other part of that, as you said, is going through all the controllers. Like Shotzi said yesterday that Crim6 went through like 20 controllers during Modern Warfare. And I think Arcity said he went through like 47, but some of that was to do with him breaking, and some of that was to do with the fact that he has his thumbsticks loose, so they get stick drift more easily. So I don't know, but these pros are going through insane amounts of controllers, and if you're an amateur player, you can't afford to go through all those controllers, like because you're not getting them for free. So that's like another reason why maybe ATS should be allowed.
yeah, but think about AW and like how violent that was on the controller. And like players went through them like crazy on that because it was like literally the whole game was
Good point, actually.
slide, like
Yeah,
So I
slide,
think
double dash,
this
jump,
isn't
like yeah,
yeah, this isn't the worst year for controllers. Like Black Ops 3 was bad as well. And like talking about the hand issue, like think about players who play with claw, they already have that issue, like with their other hand. And so I feel like it's not that big of an issue in terms of arthritis. It's more just an issue in terms of certain players not being able to do the same movements as others. And so I feel like removing that and allowing that, like the tech sprint, to be a part of the game might make it a little bit more interesting. Or not. Who
Or not,
knows,
who knows?
honestly. It's none of the...
Exactly, yeah. And that's the thing, I don't know, like, auto tack sprint being banned can't help players in terms of the health of their hands, but I don't know how much it necessarily hurts it because at the end of the day, like, you're already all over the place with your fingers and stuff. Like, I don't know how much difference the double tap really makes when you think about what your fingers are doing and your other thumb and all this type of stuff. Like, I don't know if there's been any research. There's clearly not been any research done into like what the impact auto tack sprint makes on arthritis 30 years down the line. It probably can't help, but it
Yeah,
might not be a massive deal. Um, some players do get
100%.
these hand injuries though, right? Like obviously Zuma, but that's been a thing for a while, and Alex last year had a similar thing. It's probably going to keep happening more and more. And Simp was like, yo, or Major Maniac was like, or someone said like, just do your hand stretches, which I mean, probably helps. People should have a routine. I should probably have a hand stretch routine. I don't really know how to do it, to be honest, but I don't know what
It'll
you're meant
work.
to do. But that'll work. That'll work.
Yeah.
Exactly. We're going to do all the hand stretches at the same time. But we don't play Vanguard anyway, so don't have to worry about it. So
Are people still using auto tech sprint?
the pros aren't using it, and the amateurs, I'm pretty sure, have taken it off now.
Yeah.
But some
Yeah,
people are
no,
probably still using it. Maybe.
I assumed it wasn't going to be in the game. Like, that's the most likely situation. But Doug throwing a spanner in the works and like creating this big hype around it is like, it's kind of interesting. There's just something else to talk about. But in reality, it's not going to happen. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, I agree. It's probably going to be gone. I mean, Scump even said that, right? That like he took it off 2 weeks ago or something because he just felt like the it being gentleman's agreement was pretty much inevitable. So yeah, not really a surprise, I guess. So speaking of Doug, I mean, we had a cracking tourney last night. There was a $150,000 tournament. This, I believe, is the biggest tourney there's been so far here in Vanguard. It's insane. I believe, like, I'm guessing Activision is putting this money up because, like, there's no way this money's coming from anywhere else. Like, it must just be to promote their game because we've got Boom TV, we've got
Yeah.
eFuse. They're putting on these tourneys. There was a $110,000 tourney last week that Kenny and Co won. There was some drama about that actually because like his team was breaking the GAs, but they weren't actually being officially enforced by the organizer. Therefore, just do what you want, I guess. And but Abizi wasn't happy about it. They lost to them in the finals, and I can understand that when there's so much money on the line. In fairness, but then there was a $150,000 tourney. I guess we can touch on like the whole concept of these tourneys first of all, because Dashi wasn't very happy about the formats. Other players haven't been very happy about this as well, and understandably, I think, just because you've got the pros and then you've got the content creators. And a lot of the tourneys are like, okay, you've got to have two pros, two content creators, or one pro, two content creators, and like a female player or something, which is pretty cool. Some of these
Yeah.
tourneys are fun. The question is like, content creator, how do you define a content creator? Like, how can you say, let's say you're a Tommy or rated, are you a pro or
Yeah.
you're a content creator? Because those guys can probably
Content
still
creator.
compete on a CTO level, but they're a content
Yeah.
creator, right? You can't possibly consider them a pro really because they haven't played pro
No.
in a couple of years. But if you're a player in challenges, right? Like let's say you are a methods, right? Like, are you a content creator or a pro? These are the questions that have been discussed. And
Oh,
eFuse actually came out before that 110k tourney and basically just scratched a load of the teams that are meant to be happening because they decided, okay, yeah, actually, we're going to consider all challengers players to be pros, basically, which caused a lot of upset.
in my opinion, these tournaments, they're because they're such high prize pool, I feel like it's all just for popularity and like numbers. It's not about competitive integrity, obviously. The game's pretty early in its cycle. So I feel like you got to take all these tournaments with a grain of salt. When people celebrate winning them, it's cool. Like, yes, you did really good and you won a lot of money, but there's no real like you haven't earned that much, especially if you've got an advantage team wise over other teams because your content creators are actually former pros. Like, find it a little bit silly. It is entertaining. I like watching them, but it's also I don't feel like you're watching because it's competitive. You're watching because like certain players are playing against each other in like a competitive-ish environment. You get what I
Yeah, I
mean?
agree. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that like what I will say is that I think it's been better than what it was last year. Because last year I can't remember many tourneys the pros were playing in because the pros want to play in the tourneys with the cash, right? That's just how it's going to be. And last year there wasn't tourneys like with this much weight on them. Apart from the tourneys that like they went round. I forget exactly what they were called, but like Seattle had one. They had like a certain name, like some, Florida's one was like maybe something Kraken or something deep related or something. And they had like some stupid name of the tourney. And then they would put together a load of like the Warzone guys, Call of Duty guys, a similar idea to this, but like each of the teams got to like host one, even though the team was not really involved at all apart from the branding. But this is a bit more interesting because it's not just the same group of players every single time in a different order. A lot of these tourneys, some players are playing, some players aren't. Some players are skipping them. And also, you've got different organizers running them. It's not just like a CDL tournament pre-season. You've got eFuse, Boom TV, like Hitch obviously has been involved, and they all have their kind of own vibes and feel and ways of running things. Like last night's 150k one, especially. Just before we touch on that, I just wanted to mention the last thing on this tournament stuff is like Halo, for example, has been doing these online qualifiers for Raleigh, and that are kind of like 2Ks, right? 2K, 5K, or whatever from back in the CoD and like just MLG in general days, really. I think Clayster and other guys have said that, like, look, there's pros and cons to that because the pros don't really want to be playing a big 2K tournament that's huge in terms of pro points and stuff, which obviously is never going to be like pro points aren't necessary nowadays if you're a pro team because you're in the league anyway. But back in the day, they were super important. Like, you had to do really well in these 2Ks every weekend if you wanted to qualify for the events at the start of the year. But what that did mean is that every single weekend for fans, there was a fantastic, really competitive tournament going on with all the pro teams playing for a decent amount of money every weekend. And we don't get that anymore at all at the start of the game. We just
Yeah.
have to wait until the league starts.
Dude, the best part was when like certain amateur teams would break through into like the top eight, and then you'd see like these fresh players playing against like established players for like actually really important seeding. Like those tournaments, even though they were the players complained, I don't think anyone else complained about those tournaments. It was just the players that had to dedicate 10 hours on a Saturday to playing COD. And it's like, as a fan, that's one of the things I miss the most was seeing all these teams compete and not knowing where it was going to go. But I guess also as a fan, I miss having amateur teams at pro events, but that's a different story entirely.
Yeah, true. I think it's like probably some of the pros looking back on that will think like, damn, that's really fun. Like, just grinding Call of Duty for all that time, playing in those kind of high level competition type stuff. Yeah, we just don't
Thanks.
get that anymore, unfortunately. I'm sure like some people really Clayson probably looks back at it and realizes, understandably so, that like, damn, those days were tough. Like the fact we have to do that every single weekend. But yeah, just bringing back those type of tourneys, the 2Ks and the 5Ks, like that's one of the things. Like these tourneys that are going on right now, none of them have the full pro teams, and I think part of that is because the CDL have the rights to use the team brandings and therefore they can't have they don't want teams going into these tourneys just like branded as their own team, which seems to be the issue with some of these. But it does mean that we don't really get to see how these teams are doing until the season starts, apart from maybe some scrim knowledge, right? It's like at the start of Infinite Warfare, for example. There was all these like 2Ks, 5Ks going on, and every week, like Optic always dominate the early online. That's just always how it was during that kind of era. And E United, which was, or maybe they weren't even E United at the time. This might have been when they were still the Ghosty crew, actually. But even when they were E United, there were still these 2Ks going on. And that was like Gunner's, Arcites, Pristini, and Silly. And
Yeah,
even before that, when they had like Drama or whoever it was on the team. And
yeah, it was.
Yeah, when they were like the Gosu crew. And they would like make grand
Mm.
finals of these tourneys up against Optic, and they would like put them in the dirt, or like not necessarily put them in the dirt, but like Gunless would drop like 40 on them, and like it was such a crazy time because like no one even knew what Gunless looked like. It was just like, who's this
Yeah.
guy? Something dodgy's going on here, and obviously then they go to LAN, and then it builds up the storyline, right? Much better than it would have been.
Did you remember when they were? It was really important that they all be united in Infinite Warfare. And one of the 5Ks or 2Ks, can't remember which it was. They had to finish above like top 16 to be able to get into pools. And they finished something like top 60, and they had to start from open bracket, even though they won the event before.
Mad. I
Do
actually
you
don't
remember that?
remember that. No, 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 that's
Yeah,
crazy.
ESWC, they started from open
Oh,
bracket.
yes. No, no, no. That
Yeah,
does ring a bell now. I do remember that. Yeah, because they literally won the
yeah.
previous event. They went to ESWC and they got knocked out by some European team or something.
Yeah, I
They
need to
came
take a
like
look. I'm gonna do
top
some.
16 in that event. Yeah, that's it. I forgot about that. Yeah. So that's the thing. Like, craziness like that is why that kind of era was great, but also why it was kind of stupid in a way. Like, if you're the best players on the best
Yeah,
teams,
but
you should just go to the events. But
I liked it because it threw a spanner in the works, man. Like now it's almost too regimented. FaZe is gonna win 80% of the time, and there's nothing really crazy that's gonna happen. Whereas, yeah, here they finished, yeah, top 16 at ESWC. But like, I don't know, man. I just reminisce too much on COD because 4 or 5 years ago, I was completely engrossed in every aspect with competitive COD. And now I love it still. I'm trying to find things that keep my passion burning for it.
I
But
think a
that's
lot of
why I'm
people
looking
feel
into
like
these.
that.
Yeah, I'm looking at these other esports and like where I could move into and like take my platform and like grow even more. And I think you're doing exactly the same thing. So it's like, as long as COD's still there, I'm still going to be a part of it. But we just need a little bit more to chew on.
It's the personalities that keep me around, I think, really. And I didn't think that was the
Yeah,
case before. Like, I thought I would, and I probably still will always be interested in COD to some degree, but if, like, all the personalities disappeared and we had different players that came in and played, like, I don't know if I could actually keep up my interest that long because I don't play the game. Like, the game is okay, and it's Call of Duty, which always is going to have a special place to some degree, but it's not. It's definitely not been the same lately as it was during that kind of. Everyone looks back on what they consider to be the golden era, but I agree in the sense that like things are things are almost too regimented and predictable nowadays. That there's none of these like crazy. You get crazy outliers sometimes in terms of individual series, but just the way the league is structured, or at least it was structured last year. You've got three home series, then a major, three home series, major, three home series, major. It's like, okay, nice structure, but when it got to stage 4, stage 5, and was like, if bloody fed up with this, like the seeding for champs is basically set at this point. Not too much to play
yeah,
for. Like these matches don't mean that much. So that was a problem. And then also just the way that champs, the bracket went, right? With the fact that FaZe were just a shoe in to win it, honestly, just because they were like, they had all the advantage there. And don't worry, Webster, I'm not going anywhere. Like, yeah, I'm staying here in Call of Duty for a very long time. We're just going to expand the wings a little bit. But
mm,
it's just, yeah, just things like that. It's like the Valorant, for example, they're champions. They've got like, the format is just great. 16 teams qualify. They have a GSL style group format with 4 teams in each pool. So 2 teams get out. It's win 2 before you lose 2. 8 teams go out into the playoffs. And then based on the seedings from that, they go into, or like maybe it's just random draws. I'm not really sure how they do it exactly. But they then get seeded or however into an 8-team double elimination bracket. And then, winner wins the whole thing. It's like, wow, cracking format, lads. Reminiscent really of what CWL champs used to be back in the day. But that kind of excitement that creates, we don't really have that anymore. So a bit of a
no.
tangent, really.
But what would create that is having a playoff, so turning the current champs format into just CDL playoffs at the end of the year, and then doing AMs and pro teams champs,
World Cup,
which
baby,
I've said like 10 times. Yeah,
or
but
something like that.
maybe World Cup. But I meant like the original champs format where it's like 24 to 32 teams, pools, bracket, losers bracket, and then maybe a
With all
World
that
Cup
stuff.
where it's just teams. from different countries. But like, I definitely feel like separating champs and CDL playoffs is key because the playoffs right now are not champs, and I think we know that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
agrees. I think Spectre makes a good point though as well. Like I've definitely been, I would say, probably pleasantly surprised that the um, the positives that franchising has had to a degree, like just the regionalization. When I first heard about it, I was very skeptical. I think probably mostly from a European sports fan lens, really, of like the fact that we don't really do that over here. And like the reaction to when the Super League was going to be a thing, like you can kind of see how that goes in Europe and the UK, which of
yeah,
course is rather similar to franchising, frankly, in the States. But yeah, I think it's really cool, really, that local news organizations or like even parents of kids that happen to like play Call of Duty can know that like, oh, we live in Texas, there's a Dallas team and the Dallas news are reporting on what's going on with the Dallas team. And this type of stuff is good. And I can see why like they think that model can be successful. I don't think it's the way to be maximally successful in esports. I think that probably League of Legends have it pretty much nailed down on how they have a franchising league, which is good for them, I guess, and good for the stability of the teams, but they don't lose the actual branding of the teams that makes them global. There's all these things. And of course, this is a discussion that, we're not going to turn back the time. Like the CDL isn't going anywhere. And if it does, like if the CDL just collapses, like the Overwatch League might, like Activision aren't just going to go back to supporting the CWL again. Like they're going to just consider the entire Call of Duty esports project to have failed, and just going to pull the plug or go to Warzone or something, right? So I don't think that's going to happen. I'm not like concerned about that as a reality. Like Call of Duty is too big, and if they want to make it work, I'm sure they could make it work. But the clocks aren't being turned back. Is all. It's kind of what I'm saying on it, really.
yeah. Never be what it was, but that's fine. Let's just move on. I'm getting
Let's move on. It's
pointed.
too depressing. It's too depressing. 150k Tourney. Doug Censor Martin, right? This guy's out of control. Like, not only he talks the talk, right? Doug talks the talk. Does he always walk the walk? Not always. But in this case, he walked the walk. There's no denying it. He comes in here. He's got his team. It's like a pro sim tourney. It's 5v5. He got drafted pretty much last, I think, out of like all the players involved. And he wasn't happy about it. He was not happy about being drafted basically last, especially against all these other guys. He eventually gets into a squad. In winners round 2, he plays up against Scump's team, beats him in map 3, gets super hyped, does a load of pull-ups, like just talking to Scump about, you can't beat me, like, you don't have what it takes, all this, like, he's going to make the run, hyping up his team. They make it to finals. Scump's team makes it all the way back to match him in the final. And then I think it was like 2 series there to play, and Scump's team won the first series, and like Doug had a couple of particularly poor maps. It was like, yo, what's gonna happen here? But Doug is he's always thing is like he always beats Scump. He reckons he has Scump's number, and he also reckons that he doesn't ever lose in grand finals. I'm pretty sure historically, I don't think he's ever lost to grand finals. He might have won one grand
Four and
finals in some
four.
small tournament, but yeah, exactly. Yeah, 4-4. That's what he goes for. Like he's 4-0 in grand finals. He's undefeated. And he comes in here up against Scumper Jumper, and he's well, I don't know if he's actually in Scump's head, but I guess he likes to think he is. And he clutches up in the final series. He drops like 14 final map on Oasis, obviously eliminations, and wins it, right? And then he's flexing on the haters. He's saying, these guys are disrespecting me, picking me last, like. I showed these guys what's up. Scump's lucky that I'm not in the CDL. I'd be wrecking him, and all this talk, right, which is just fantastic. It's just incredibly entertaining. I know that Doug knows what he's doing here. He's a smart guy. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to market himself and keep him at the top of minds, which he does successfully, especially by capitalizing on moments like this. And I'm pretty sure we're not going to hear the last of this for a very long time. Like he's not going to shut up about this for years, which
This is a good 5 years. Yeah,
yeah,
he's sorted.
exactly. A good 5 years. But this, you're bang on. So exactly, I guess that kind of brings us to the question, really, like at the end of the day, Doug's goal, he wants to win the world championship, right? That's how it is. Some of the stuff he says, I can't always tell if he's being 100% straightforward or if there's a little bit of like, Does he really believe what he says sometimes? I don't know. But then when he has a tourney result like this, you think, wow, maybe he does back it up. Because I'm pretty sure they won like 80K between them for this, from the 150K prize pool for this.
Yeah, I think bigger than anything, I think he kind of believes it, but more so, I think he tries to speak things into existence by saying
Yeah.
it out loud and putting the pressure on himself to do it. It's kind of like the Conor McGregor style of calling out your opponent, saying their shit, and then showing it as well.
Yeah,
So
no,
like
you've
you get
got to
extra
back yourself up. Yeah.
out and you predict exactly what you've done, but then when you don't do it, you get clowned or people forget. So it's like there's a bigger upside for saying what you're going to do and doing it than saying what you're going to do and not doing it. Like, the upside's crazy if you do actually succeed. So fair
Yeah.
enough.
No, I agree. It's fair enough. I love it. I mean, it's like they call it, do they call it the law of attraction, don't they? When it's like you
Yeah.
manifest something in your like subconscious and then, or like you speak something to the point where your subconscious mind starts like working on that goal and, finds a way to make that a reality. Now,
It becomes
obviously some goals aren't so easy.
Yeah, and like it's not always going to happen, but he definitely probably goes into tournaments with more expectation and more confidence, having like visually experienced it already and like put it into the world. So understandable because a lot of athletes do it, especially at the highest level.
Exactly, yeah. I'm sure Doug knows what he's doing because, like, there was a clip that came out before he got to the grand finals, and it was like, look, these guys, they disrespect me, but I know for sure that I'm a better player than them. I know for sure that when push comes to shove, like when the chips are down, I'm gonna be the one that executes and stuff like this. And he was saying that for, I think, after their series win against Scump or something. And then that's basically what happened in the grand finals. So you got to tip it. The other part is like, look, will this guy ever get back in the league, right? At 11 teams, it's not going to happen. At 12 teams, it's not going to happen. At 16 teams, now we might be talking. I think, well, okay, hold on a second, like, I know you're making a face, but all I'm saying is the pro players understandably think that Doug's a bit of a meme, right? Which is true to a degree, don't get me wrong. Like, we saw last season, Seattle Surge, they needed a player, and Doug was like, I'm your guy. And apparently, they might have talked to him, but Octane, or, probably the whole team was like, we're not getting Doug. Like, come on, let's be serious. Then again, if you'd have brought Doug in for Decimate, or instead of Decimate, then, they probably needed a selfless SMG player, right? So you can look at that argument. At the same time, if I am a 16th team coming in, and let's say I'm late to the party, right? Let's say the league expands next year. Doug's done pretty well in challenges this season. The league's expanding going into 2022 or 2023, and I'm kind of late to the Rostermania party. Like a lot of the other teams, maybe they got in a bit earlier, they got all their stuff sorted out. They've managed to poach maybe a couple of decent players, one or two, and I'm sitting there thinking, okay, kind of maybe how Washington were this year, thinking, okay, all right, who can I pick up? Like, what's the team I want to build? And Doug has a lot of experience with a number of like up and coming amateur guys that have gone on to do some pretty good things. Parasite in a similar boat as well. So, and also like, what Doug brings to the table in terms of his personality and stuff is also obviously massive. He wants to compete. He wants to actually be on a team that can compete at a like he doesn't want to be a New York situation where they tell him he's going to compete and then he just sits on the bench the whole year. And he reckons they basically just lied to him or weren't particularly straight up in that situation. He wants to be a member of the team that's going to take them to the top, right? That's his goal, which is cool. Could you see a team going down that route? In certain circumstances, I can see it happening. He has to have a good year in challenges, expansion has to come in, and the stars need to align to some degree with a team that says, look, we're going to take a chance on Doug and we're going to bring in like two other, up and coming amateur guys and maybe one other veteran that actually, gets along and respects Doug and doesn't think he's a complete meme. And that could be a roster, right? I don't think that'd be great, but I don't think it's completely impossible that Doug gets back in the league. I mean, Parasite got back in the league, so
Yep,
Doug can get
but
back in the league.
dude, Parasite's been no, dude, that is not a good comparison. Dude,
Is it not?
Parasite for like 8 years has been the best player outside the league Period. Doug has taken years off. No. Okay, let's get this straight. I love Doug. He's the man, and he's helped me out in the past. I know this. He always DMs me. We
Oh
talk.
yeah, absolutely.
He's cool. But there are times where he hasn't been 100% dedicated to COD. He's got these other things going on. He's big on YouTube. He's got, I was going to say girlfriends. He has girlfriends. And he's a fucking jacked guy, and he's got a lot going for him. And I don't think COD a lot of the time has been his focus. And so I think it's a little bit more difficult than Haggy, because Haggy has been a gamer since 2003. Like a gamer.
Yeah, that's
And so I
facts.
think for Doug to get back in the league, he has to do something ridiculous like winning 50% of the challenges tournaments this year to be able to prove that he's at that level to not be an anchor, for a team, like an anchor. So he's got everything else going for him. He's got the look, he's got the following, he's got, I guess, the accolades to be, on a team, but it's just proving that he can, perform at that level like Haggy has in the past. So, and even then, Haggy got one opportunity last year and he played for one stage and then got dropped, which was unfair. But also, what does that mean for Doug in a similar situation? If he doesn't perform crazy like Haggy didn't, then it was, not going to stay there. So it's more than just getting to the league, it's also staying in the league. Because getting into the league isn't the hardest part. The hardest part we know is being in the league for a full season, for multiple seasons. And that only happens when a team's successful. And he'd have to be like best player on a top team,
I think that's
Yeah,
fair
I mean,
enough. I'm probably overrigging it a bit, but I'm just saying, like, I don't think, I think it's going to be difficult for him to get picked up on merit. But I think there could be certain circumstances in which an organization with the certain mindset thinks that, he could be good value for 1 or 2 years of play. So anyway,
for sure.
that's a
He needs to
perspective.
prove it.
I agree. This is a big season for pretty much everyone. Players, the CDL included. But we'll see how that one goes. Final thing to mention: if you guys have got questions, chuck them in the chat. If not, no worries. Is this Illy? I don't know if you want to bring this up, Omar. I can if it's still good to go. But Illy clutched this 1v4 on stream up against the subliners. They played a chal. It was like a search and destroy chal, because this is realistically the only way to get good search and destroy practice. Is like, you got to play a chal against a pro team for money, because otherwise no one's going to try. So they give this a go, and it goes round 11, and Italy clutches a 1v4 here on Berlin. It's just absurd. Like, it's a really nice 1v4, and he makes honestly some really great plays here. Like the ice to clutch a 1v4 round 11 for like 4 racks is pretty impressive. And I mean, yeah, he gets the kill on Clay right here, plants the bomb, and eventually Neptune comes and defuses it, but Illy plays the post plant pretty perfectly. Now, the big question about this 1v4 was that at the start of the clip, we saw that Hydra died and then made a call out to Crimsix, and then Crimsix got gunned because he was looking slightly the wrong way. Now, all the questions were being raised. It's okay, whose fault was this, right? Because there's obviously more than one mistake at play in these types of situations. You can't really blame the last two players, I don't think, just because there's 20 seconds left. One has to defend B, one has to defend A. You could say even then maybe Clay should have played it a little bit differently. But the Crim6 death, usually it's that kind of second kill that the guy clutching gets that's like the issue, really. So Crim6 was the one that died. So anyway, clip came out. He was blaming Hydra for making a bad call out. Then Formal came through, and there was a clip that came out on stream where he basically said that, like, Crim was just making excuses type thing. And I wonder if that's kind of gonna be an issue or like some sort of recurrence here on the subliners roster. What do you think about that, really, Lion? Because is there a tendency, do you think, for Krim to kind of divert the blame to some degree, or with Clayster there and also Drill there, which we talked to recently, like probably going to help the issue, but it still seems to be prevalent to a degree.
I actually haven't even seen the clip, but do you have a clip of the comms?
Only in my video. I don't have it on hand. It's
Is
in the
it
video.
is it
But
bad? Is it a
It's not
bad?
particularly bad. I mean, he probably apologized and made up for it after. But was like in the moment he was like, Paco, like that was like a shit call out. Like he should have said this,
Oh, was
or
the call out
something.
bad? Was it
Oh,
fine, or did he
I
get
didn't
killed
really even
because
hear
of
what
it?
he said, to be honest. And also, I don't know what the hell the maps looked like to even know if that was a reasonable call out for where he was. So,
Oh, okay.
there was probably some
Well,
valid criticism both ways, is how I would assess it.
it's COD, like he got gunned. He's gonna
Yeah.
say something. He's not just gonna be like, "Oh, I got gunned." It's just how it is. It's just the
Yeah,
ego
agreed.
within, when we play Call of Duty, there is an ego. When you get destroyed, there is blame to be put somewhere, and that was probably the easiest target, especially a player who isn't a veteran like himself. Like, I don't think he
Exactly.
would go at Clay that hard, but he would go at a guy who English isn't his first language, and he didn't do the proper call out, and it got himself killed. Like, it is what it is. This shit happens.
I agree. That's what I think. I also think that's a good place to end it. Thanks all for tuning in. It's been a fun time. Um, I need to get out of here. And good stuff. We'll be back next week, hopefully with Austin back. If not, we'll make it a good time regardless. Thanks all for tuning in on Twitch, on YouTube after the fact, on all the audio platforms. And yes, we will be seeing you next time.